Hello and welcome to another leveling guide, and today we are looking at the Huntress. So the Huntress is a very powerful character, and she's probably going to be one of the more powerful leveling options that you can have in this game. But first off, I want to go over a few things in this video, and that is, like before I start the video, is that I don't start from scratch in this video, so I do have a bit more power than you would have as a completely new player. So for example, on my bow I have affinity, and affinity makes your bow have more damage, as well as gaining more experience, and as well as getting more effect on the bow as well. I only have like 27% affinity, so it's not going to be that big of a deal. But another thing is, when I level up a new character, my Reapers can start leveling right off the bat. Whereas you have to level up to, let's say, 7 or 8 before you can actually start leveling your weapon. So yeah, that's just something I want to get out there before I actually start the video. So another thing is that the starter weapon, the Adam bow, is going to be enough for you to level up and actually take your character to the end game. So I would actually recommend not focusing on any other Reaper in this game, simply because every time your bow levels up, it will get significantly more and more flat damage added to it. So definitely keep that in mind. And on top of that, the bow, the Atom bow, is also gaining a 15% increased attack speed. And attack speed is very powerful in this game, especially early on, so you can actually level up your abilities quicker, because how you level up abilities in this game is through using it rather than actually killing enemies in combat, for example. So another crucial thing is you should be focusing on both mana and life regeneration rate on your character. This is just for sustain. It's probably not something you will get super early on, but if you find a helmet, amulet, or rings with mana regeneration, I can highly recommend that, especially on the Huntress, because the Huntress has some pretty heavy consuming skills very early on into the game. So keep that in mind. And life regeneration, you can get that on the chest and the cape, I'm pretty sure. So if you get one of those, that's going to be a huge buffer for your character. Now, I talked about attack speed earlier, and I will go over that again. So attack speed in this game is kind of a weird one, especially when you look at your abilities and it says like 2 seconds cooldown on it. So you think, oh shit, my ability is going to have a cooldown of 2 seconds at all time. That's not the case, because attack speed in this game is considered cooldown recovery. And it's actually multiplicative every time, so if you have like, let's say, 1 second cooldown and you get 50% increased attack speed, that means your ability will be halved in cooldown recovery. And if we do that again with a 50% attack speed, you will go down to 0.25 seconds cooldown instead. So you will never go down to 0 on an ability, but it can get pretty crazy at times if you stack a lot of it. Another thing is that attributes, you should be scaling the savagery node up to 5 and 10, simply because savagery gives you a bit more flat damage in the beginning, because there's not that many sources of flat scaling for you in the beginning, because your Reaper is not leveling up, and the savagery is going to be plenty of damage for you in the beginning. There's not that many other things that can boost your damage other than gear, so getting a bit more like Reaper damage, I mean raw damage on gear is going to help you out quite a lot as well. Another thing is that attributes, you can always go out of them when you please, but in the beginning just go with the savagery nodes. Another thing about the savagery nodes at 5 and 10 is that you get a 10% and a 15% more Reaper damage multiplier on both of those, so it's around 26% more damage for your Reaper, and that's going to be carrying you quite a lot. Okay, so when you get the arrow shot to level 2, I do not recommend spending any points on anything, and when I say points, it's Slorm. I actually want you to save up as much Slorm as possible in this video, and there's a good reason for that. And the same goes for the Rain of Arrows ability. I know it's very tempting to invest points into it, but it's really not that necessary, and it's not very impactful in the beginning, especially on the Rain of Arrows, because it doesn't have that much damage potential in the beginning. So what I'm doing is just leveling up to level 10, and when you get to level 10, you will take the specialization called Architect of Death. Now, Architect of Death grants you the totem ability, where you can place down a lot of ballistas. In the beginning, it has a relatively high cooldown, but it has so much damage potential in this game that it's actually nuts, and it would be absolutely foolish to not take it. And I will show you why later in the video. So when you get to use the Architect of Death, I want you to spam it as much as possible. Now, the reason why I want you to spam your Architect of Death as much as possible is not only to get something like this one with 100% pierce for just 1 point, but actually it's this one right here, the Delightful Syndrome. So Delightful Syndrome grants you the ability to scale a lot of cooldown recovery through your Sincerity. And in this game you have up to 12 Sincerity stacks, and that means you will get up to 84% cooldown recovery. When you get that in the beginning, you will be starting to spam it only and use it as your main skill. You do not want to touch any other ability whatsoever anymore. It's just going to be that powerful, and not much you can do about it because it's just that good. And you can see that it is actually just melting through everything in this game. I know I do have a bit more damage than you have, but you will definitely have just as much potential later on as I have. So when you finish off the Necromancer in Act 1, I can highly recommend going up in this one right here, the Seasoned Hunter. And when you get to also complete Act 2, I recommend taking these two right here. So the first one is the Slormite Logist. Is that how we say it? I'm not sure. And then this one, the Viper. So the Viper is just for a bit more movement speed and then some attack speed. This also grants some attack speed, which is pretty good. But I can only recommend spending points in the Ancestral tree when you actually finish off, what is it called? The Delightful Syndrome. Simply because this one is just so important in the beginning, that you just have to spend all your Slorm on this first, before spending on anything else, pretty much. While I'm at it, you had to go up in Grape Shot as the first, second the Heavy Ballista, third Totems of Renewal. Renewal is just for a bit more sustain in life, maybe not sustain, but more tankiness at least. Next one is this one with from Bones to Ballista. That means you have a little chance to summon ballistas every time you kill enemies, and that also counts for your totems, so that's pretty good. The other one is the Areas of Torment. This one is insanely good because it makes you clear insanely fast compared to without it. And then obviously the Delightful Syndrome, and then this one, Violence, Momentum. I'm going to go over this one later, simply because this is more for late game, when you unlock a few more things and maybe another Reaper, and then this one for sustain. You might have noticed that you cannot really leech from your Architect of Death Syndrome totems, but there's a way to actually get some leech a few places in the game right now, and I will show you that later. Okay, so when you get to this point, there's not much else I can actually tell you in the campaign, other than that it's gonna be a cakewalk in the park, because Architect of Death is pretty good. It can pretty much cruise through everything very easily. You can even see in this video that I opened all of the 3 multi wave breach, and it just absolutely destroyed them. So when you have defeated the twin boss, I can recommend you start out with a bit of Expedition Battlefield to begin with. You can start at Battlefield 0, that's what I would recommend. Maybe even Battlefield 1, depending on how much damage you have. If you were cruising through the campaign, I can recommend Battlefield 1, just for a bit more experience. And after you've done a few floors here and maybe gotten a new Reaper, I can recommend doing the Slorm Temple, so you can get the Ultimatum of Infinite Wisdom. So Ultimatum of Infinite Wisdom makes you gain increased experience, and that will help you right off the bat to level up even faster. And when you get that, I could highly recommend doing the Great Forge afterwards, because Great Forge is definitely the place where you get the most experience in the game right now, without a doubt. Especially if you get something with reincarnation modifiers, where enemies multiply when you defeat them. And that will pretty much carry you till level 45. And when you get to level 45, I want you to respec your attribute system and get to Savagery 45. You're probably asking, why would you pick this ever? There's a good reason for that, and that is the Ancestral tree, because when you defeat the twin boss, you get up to 4 stones, and that means you want to respec these 2 and this one, and then go up here and pick this one, Obscure Retribution. So this aura right here makes you reserve 25% of your life, and when you do that and have a bunch of life, you get a lot of flat added max raw damage, as you can see right here. So this is what I've been doing in the late game, and it's been working really well, especially when you can spam your ballista totems like this. Let me get some stacks up and running. And you can see that it you get a lot of HP out of that. And then suddenly you'll get like up to 30,000 life, maybe even 50,000 life if you min-max your HP pool enough. And you can see that it scales insanely well. And that's probably what is the best option in this scenario. Especially because of this node right here that grants you max life per totem. Okay, so there's not really that much else I can say when leveling this character. Other than that, a bow to look out for is the Great Shaman bow, because it grants you the ability to summon prime totems, and prime totems shoots out 7 arrows in a circle, which inherits your arrow shot, which means that you should actually be leveling this one through spamming the Architect of Death, because it levels up a tiny bit every time you cast Architect of Death. And the nodes you should go up in is the Bounding Arrow for rebound, bouncing through the walls. Obsidian Arrowhead for 100% chance to pierce. This is insanely good. And then this one is really, really cool. So breathe in and breathe out is completely irrelevant with the cooldown time, because this is a totem and it doesn't scale through arrow shot's attack speed. So I can put down this prime totem and then activate prime totem passive all the time. And you can spam it relatively quickly. And this ability deals insane amount of damage. It's actually crazy. I think the highest amount of damage I've put out on a single hit is like over 100 million damage. Yeah, it is that crazy. To be fair, I probably had a lot of these, what is it called? Totem dexterity stacks, as well as like 80,000 life, because I had like 150 totems active at a time, maybe even 200, I think. So yeah, the potential of this build is insane. The next one is this one, which is insanely good, furious and fast. So arrow shot scales damage through your projectile speed now when you pick up this one. So as you can see, I have 142% increased projectile speed, which converts to increased damage instead. I mean, it's actually this, like you get both values, so both the speed and the damage. So that's a pretty good thing to have. And then the last one is forking arrow shots have a 10% chance to fork again. Kinda whatever. It's there for a bit more clear speed maybe, but really not that important. And you're probably wondering what else can you do on this character to min-max it. So from my perspective, I've been using this legendary right here, which adds the Fenrir's Barrage Shots aura. It makes you have a chance to trigger one rain of arrows every second to a nearby enemy. It's kinda low in chance, but if you do, for example, Great Forge, there's something called Everything is Awesome, and while you are delighted and cast Rain of Arrows, which this ring does for you, you gain 2% attack speed per stack up to 25, so that's a 50% increased attack speed for something you don't even do. Like you gain it passively if you get this ring. So last but not least, what should you be looking for on gear? As much life as possible is very nice to have. Get a bit of mana regeneration, get some critical strike chance here and there, attack speed, damage to elites, a bit of essential strike chance, because we do want to spec into this one right here, the Nimble Warrior effect rune. This can make your character deal significantly more damage with the arrow shot. And yeah, not much else to say. Get some movement speed as well, some damage reduction here and there. Yeah. Oh yeah, and totem effect. Totem effect is insanely good as well, because it scales your overall damage output through your Architect of Death totems and your prime totems. If you get that, you can see just how much it actually affects me. So I have 39,000 to 158,000 on my Architect of Death. Let's take off the cape, because that has a relatively high amount of totem effect. When I take that off, we go all the way down to 35,900 to 18,000. I mean, 180,000. So yeah, totem effect, very good. Get it on as many pieces as possible, especially rings. I didn't get on this one because I wanted crit instead. And then let's take a look at all my stats over here at 1, 2, 3. I think that's very important. This is number 2 tab, and you can see how attack speed actually scales in this game. You can see that I have 31, 30, 30, 30 percent from different sources in the game. And yeah, at the raw damage from the Ancestral tree, a bit of crit chance and critical damage, bit of Ancestral strike damage, chance, not something you should be looking out. I mean, you shouldn't be investing too much into Ancestral Strike chance. A bit of damage to elites, and yeah, some damage reduction if you can get that. And here's the last tab, and you can see that I have some projectile speed. It's right here. Yeah, it's 142.5 that I have right now. So yeah, I think that's about it. Not much else to say, and thank you so much for watching. And I will see you in the next video of the Mischievous Mage, I think he's called. So yeah, take care guys. Okay, so I just finished leveling up, and I was just doing the Great Forge, and I had a pretty good run. I had these two together, the Replicant and the Reincarnation together, so I was getting like twice, no, how many is that? Quadruple in the enemies, and I had some insane luck on quantity on my war chest, and a lot of gear as well as some, like you can see there's some ridiculous numbers right here, simply because I had so many enemy encounters. And because I have that many, I think I have to do this. I usually don't do this, but I feel like I have to hide it. As you can see, my gear is kind of bad. It's not the greatest, but it did kind of well for this situation. I did cheat a bit. I had to take this one to make my like every time I used my support skill, which is my totems, I would then summon a prime totem, and the prime totem is shooting arrow shot, which will make me leech from this ability. And that way I could actually sustain my health, otherwise I would have been dead long ago. But yeah, you can see this ridiculous number right here. It's pretty nice. I'm kind of sad that I didn't get more chest quality, but let's see how it goes. Please don't crash. Okay. Oh. Yeah. There we go. That's a fair amount of legendaries, especially for Wrath 4. Yep. Just keeps going. Yep. That's how it rolls at this point. But I didn't want to continue because it was super laggy and I wouldn't be able to control my character in some situations. So I'm very happy that they are going to fix, maybe not fix, but at least improve on the performance of the game.